Hello and welcome to episode 298 of the Thursday Night Podcast. Before we get to a general roundup of what's going on in Georgia State Athletics this week, I want to play our latest TED Talk, which is us talking about Ted Hurst, with Georgia State alum David Schiele, who hopped on to talk about not only Ted and his fit in Tampa Bay and his view of Ted's ability to grow in that organization, also Georgia State talk and talking about the missteps that have happened, the opportunities that are being missed, and just some interesting thoughts he had on Georgia State athletics as a whole right now that I am sure you will appreciate and some of you will wholeheartedly agree with. Want to play that off the front, so enjoy that interview with David and then get to the full comings and goings this week on the portal, the coaching front, and baseball, beach volleyball news as well. I'm joined now for the most serendipitous kind of sports story. Everything lines up in a nice row. Ted Hurst gets drafted to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week in the NFL draft, 2 weeks ago, whenever time is a flat circle. David Schiele, sports reporter for WTSP in Tampa Bay, went to Georgia State.
Yep.
Was already lined up to, talk everything about the Bucs as it was. And so I guess we can start here. Just you've been on the show before. We don't need to speak about how long ago it was, but you helped us preview a rather famous Georgia State win at Tennessee, as it turned out, which none of us were ready for. Which your bio, just kind of your connection to Georgia State and what the path your career has taken.
Yeah, so I started my college career at Hampton University, and after 1 year, I got homesick, and I was like, I think I want to just go back to Atlanta. So I transferred to Georgia State, and I immediately got plugged into a student-run sports show called Primetime Sports, and so that just entailed covering all things Georgia State athletics. And so, of course, we were covering the football team, which was having its best era at the time, making its first bowl appearance and then its first bowl victory, both happening in the Cure Bowl in Orlando. And then we saw the basketball team have a lot of success. I came in right after the R.J. Hunter shot. So I had just missed that by a semester, but I was able to see this team go to the Sun Belt tournament, win the Sun Belt tournament, and then go on to the NCAA tournament. So, the DeMarcus Simons years, those were special. Devin Mitchell years, I think Jeff Thomas was, I can just keep naming guys, but,
We are a Name Some Guys show, so
yeah.
No fault here.
So, yeah, those were some fun times. But also, being able to go out to softball and baseball and volleyball and beach volleyball, we were able to cover all of those teams and give them coverage that, if we can just be honest, they haven't had that level of coverage since. It was the most, up close look at Georgia State athletics as a whole, and I'm very proud of what we were able to do as students. And so coming off of that, I was able to land my first job as a professional sportscaster, and that was in Knoxville, Tennessee. And the irony of that was the very first Tennessee football game I covered happened to be a home game against Georgia State. And people were trying to have pity on me, like, man, this is going to be bad, man. Like week 1, hey, August 31st, just close your eyes. I'm like, okay, I guess. And then I swear to you, on August 30th, the night of August 30th, I had a dream where Georgia State scored a game-winning touchdown in like the corner. And I woke up and I was fully convinced that Georgia State was going to win that game. And so when I got to the station to grab all my equipment, I told everybody in there, I was like, are you guys ready for Georgia State to win this game? And everyone laughed. They all laughed. And of course, and we've had Dan Ellington on my podcast tell his story and his point of view of everything that happened.
He called it earlier than you did. He called it back in like April of that year.
He did. He called it in spring. He called it in spring. And I actually asked him about that, and I was like, I don't know where that confidence came from because I wasn't ready to do that, but he was. But I was on the field. Like, I was standing on the field watching Georgia State score these touchdowns. I remember I was in the back of the end zone on the opposite side of the field when Dan Ellington, broke some ankles, split defenders, got into the end zone, and I was as shocked as everyone else in that stadium. And, of course, it's my first Tennessee game. So I can't start jumping up and down and cheering, but I was over the moon excited. So, yeah, that was an awesome moment. I did 3 years or so, 3 years and some change in Knoxville, and then came down to Tampa Bay. And so I've been here in Tampa Bay for now just a little more than 4 years, covering the Bucks, the Lightning in the NHL, and the Rays in MLB. And, of course, you've got not just Ted Hurst, but Ben Chukuma is already down here with the Buccaneers. So I've had some Georgia State connections.
And Jai Gilmore, I think, added to rookie camp or got UDFA, who was at Georgia State until this past year. He went to Georgia Tech. So just all the weird Georgia State connections happening in Tampa Bay right now. On that note, I mean, you're tracking this stuff throughout the year. You want to get your viewers, your listeners, the best eye of what the Bucs are going to do. When did it sort of like dawn on you that like, oh, Georgia State has like a deadlocked top 100 guy in this draft in Ted Hurst?
Yeah, I mean, I just kept seeing, all these draft analysts and experts talk about him, and I was like, hey, that's cool. People talking about Ted Hurst, and not once though did I have him mocked to the Buccaneers. Like that was not even a thought. I thought he was just going to go to some team that thought, hey, it'd be fun to have this guy, and they just took him. I thought the Buccaneers had so many needs on defense that they were probably just going to address that, especially in the first 3 rounds. So when they got Ruben Bain Jr., I actually predicted that they would draft Ruben Bain Jr., that he would fall to 15. And so I said, yeah, they're going to have to address that. Then they're going to have to address their defensive line. They have to address corner. They had so many needs to address, linebacker as well. And so they did. I mean, they went and got their edge rusher, and then they went and got their linebacker. They got Trotter. And then they threw a complete curveball and was like, you know what, Ted Hurst, because we still feel like we can find some defensive guys later, and they did. Being able to get Keontae Scott, who I didn't think was going to be available for them later in the draft, but he was. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't have Ted Hurst mocked to the Buccaneers, especially because that receiver room, even without Mike Evans, is still crowded. So I think the Bucs adding Ted Hurst just says that they really believe, and this is something that head coach Todd Bowles said before they drafted Emeka Egbuka last year. He said you can never have too many horses in the stable. I mean, he just believes in having a bunch of weapons on offense, and he just added another one that a lot of people really, really enjoyed watching when they turned on the film.
Yeah, and we talked about it last week when the draft happened. Like, regrettably for Falcons fans like myself, it's a good spot for Ted to land because the Bucs have done a good job of developing receivers over the years. I guess from your perspective covering the team, what have you seen is it them IDing it early in the process? Is it the way they're coaching them up? I guess because you look across, Egbuka had a great rookie year. Godwin was he was literally picked to the same draft pick that Ted Hurst was when he was drafted. Just what have you seen from how they've been able to do it where they've had pretty consistent receiver development there?
Yeah, and we also have to keep in mind that they've just had different coaching staffs. They've had different, I should say, offensive coaching staffs. Like, they just changed offensive coordinators again, So it hasn't been consistent in terms of, like, who the position coach is, but I do think it helps a lot when you just draft special talents. I think Mike Evans, I mean, that's a future Hall of Famer. When he was the leader of that room, that definitely helped with development. I think Emeka Egbuka is really just a special talent. Chris Godwin is an incredibly good receiver when he's fully healthy, and I think he's quite underrated. And then you add in a guy like last year, they drafted Tej Johnson on day 3. He's got amazing speed, just kind of blow the top off the defense kind of speed. They have Jalen McMillan, who's also I can go up and go get it kind of receiver. So they have all of these offensive weapons on the outside that, they can make plays. They can rack up yards after the catch. The difference is Mike Evans isn't drawing coverage away anymore. So Mike Evans, because of his size and because of his speed, defenses had to adjust for him specifically. They had to have a plan for him specifically. The way teams were able to defend the Buccaneers when Mike was on the field versus when he was off the field, it was night and day. So keeping that in mind, Mike Evans goes to San Francisco. So now you don't have the threat of number 13 anymore. So great. What do we do now? And I think to me, it's trying to find ways to scheme guys open and allowing them to use their individual skill sets to get open versus man coverage or zone coverage, whatever it may be. And when you have a ton of weapons, Sometimes it's not, hey, we got this one powerful receiver, future Hall of Famer guy. It's we're going to overwhelm you with the number of guys we have on the outside, and we just believe that one of them is going to be open. So I think that's kind of what they're moving forward and what Zach Robinson is going to try to do this year.
And I know you asked the question about just what it means to Ted about this Georgia State connection and getting drafted and staying. And so, and I thought he gave a great answer there.
Yeah, and I think the important thing is realizing that players can go to Georgia State and stand out and get drafted. I think that's what Ted really did. He just proved that you can go to Georgia State, stay at Georgia State, and still make it to the NFL and be drafted as early as day 2. We never saw this with Penny Hart, right? We didn't see this with Robert Davis. And these are guys that we looked at and said, man, we really think they can play on Sundays. And we saw them either go undrafted or get drafted very late. And for us, as Georgia State fans, alum, whatever it is, we're like, all right, well, is that the best that we're ever going to see? Is it round 7 and undrafted free agent? And hopefully they can kind of make it into the league. I mean, we saw Chandon Sullivan do it. He had a good run as a professional football player. But yeah, I mean, this is proof that if you are a special talent, guy had 0 stars coming out of high school. If you're a special talent, you can go to Georgia State. You can show up and play well. And the whole knock that people had on him at first, oh, well, he's not playing high-level competition. Okay, well, he goes to the Senior Bowl and shows out against high-level competition, and it's like, oh, okay, well, we can't say that anymore. So there's the proof right there. Like, hey, you can still be an NFL-caliber player at a Georgia State, and I think it was very important for him to stay in terms of, like, the program. I think it'll show players that it's possible. You don't have to say, okay, I have to go to Tech, or I have to go to Louisville, or I have to go to Clemson. No, you don't. You can stay here. You can stay here and you can play. And if you are good, they will find you.
And I guess for those of us who are not as plugged in watching NFL until week 1, everything kicks off, they've got rookie camps. They've got all this stuff going on, the preseason games eventually. For a guy like Ted that goes in the 3rd round, he's probably not fighting to, like, make the roster practice squad. But I guess where do guys like that in that range start to catch the eye of, like, oh, this guy might actually be playing for the team this season, playing a role?
Yeah, I mean, clearly if you're drafted that high, the team expects something of you. And what they're going to do at rookie camp, which is about to start very soon, actually, and I'll be out there. When it comes to camp, it's all about how you can learn the scheme, right? Because that's really what it is. It is a 3-day intensive, like, you need to learn the scheme. We need to see who's in shape. We need to, make sure these guys can, just understand what it's like to play football in the NFL. And they try to stuff all of this into you in 3 days, which is kind of crazy. But, yeah, I mean, when you're a 3rd-round pick, like, you're getting a contract, right? You're signing. It is going to be a lot harder for you to get cut than it is for you to make the team. So, I am pretty sure he's going to make the final roster unless something insane happens where, God forbid, he gets hurt, or he just says, you know what, I'm in Tampa, I'm going to have a bunch of Cuban sandwiches and a bunch of cigars, and I'm just going to chill because I made it, and then it's like, all right, well, you're probably going to get cut. But, yeah, man, I think for him, he's fine. He's not necessarily fighting for a roster spot, but I think what he can do is prove that he belongs on the field consistently on Sundays.
And you're covering the Bucs. You've got the Falcons jersey behind you. Is it a blessing or a curse that the NFC South has been following you at this point, and you live in it all the time?
I love it. I mean, anybody that knows me knows I have just this affinity for the NFC South. I love it. This division is just, for me, it's special because it's all I've ever known. And, yeah, people down here really don't care that I'm a Falcons fan. Like, they really don't. Multiple Bucs fans have told me that they hate the Falcons the least. It's like, it's Saints far and away number 1, which is why
Got something in common.
Bucs fans and Falcons fans agree. Yes, the Saints are the number one rival. We can't stand them. Panthers end up being number 2, and then the Falcons end up number 3 because it's kind of like, oh, it's the other team that wears red. Cool, we got to play them twice a year. I mean, because we have to. So it's not a huge rivalry, but when both teams are fighting for playoff spots like they were last year, and both teams have a chance to win the division like last year and the year before that, it can get a little intense. But other than that, it's not this traditional, look, oh my goodness, it's Falcons and the Bucs, so it's a big deal. No, it's not. We have to play them twice a year, so we do.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing I was just going to say, just you're covering all this stuff for the Tampa Bay area. Obviously, you just got a chance to breathe after the NHL series wrapped. How do you kind of observe Georgia State? And it's okay if your answer is like, I just kind of see it as like a score on my box score when I check stuff. But like, I feel like people like you that are very plugged into sports, but it's not like the day-to-day. Those are the people that Georgia State need to find a way to get buy-in from more. And so I'm just curious, it feels like you're kind of the perspective there because you obviously care about sports. You covered Georgia State for a while. You knew the teams. But getting into that kind of level of fan is probably where the lapse has been, where you've got a small amount of diehards and you've got other people that are students, but like the middle ground is where I think the biggest room for improvement is.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I don't really sit down and watch Georgia State. I don't get that much of an opportunity to do so. I think the best thing I can do, honestly, is when I notice that a game's getting good, I just turn on the radio. I want to hear my boy Dave Cohen.
Hall of Famer,
Newly
minted
now,
Hall
right?
of Famer.
Yeah, Hall of Famer. So I hope I can get in there one day. I don't know for what. I don't think I did that much, but I think I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I'll just turn on the radio real quick. I remember when Rob Lanier was taking the Panthers to the NCAA tournament. I listened to the Sun Belt Championship game. I didn't watch it because I was actually at a high school game. So I had headphones in. I had my camera. I'm baseline at this high school basketball game, and I'm filming it. But I'm listening to Georgia State win the Sun Belt, and so I'm getting excited every time Dave Cohen lets out a good. Every time Georgia State was knocking down a three. So yeah, most of the time I am just looking over, checking the score, and it hurts to look over and see that the other team has more points than we do. I mean, that's just it's
very common occurrence this season,
right? So
whatever the sport.
It hurts to, and then the days where I look over and I'm like, oh, we're playing Southern, oh man, and then I try to watch that for a little bit, and then we're down, and I was like, I'm not watching this, like I refuse to just sit there and use my time, right? As now I'm not a student, obviously, like now I'm a husband, I'm a father, I work full time in TV in Tampa Bay. I don't have time to sit down and watch Georgia State, especially if they're going to be losing to Georgia Southern. So yeah, I mean, I have voiced my displeasure. I have voiced that I want change, and not just like, oh, I get a new coach. No, I wanted change in athletics. Period, from the top to the bottom. I wanted there to be a change. I wanted there to be a change in mindset. For me, I get to be up close with USF. USF was also considered a commuter school. Like a lot of people don't live on campus. And USF doesn't have this historic football program either. And they remind me of Georgia State in a lot of ways because here they are in a big city, right? But a lot of people look right over USF and say, no, we cheer for the Gators who are up in Gainesville. Just like people we look over Georgia State. We're fans of the Bulldogs. They're in Athens. And so here you are in a non-Power 4 conference, and you're just kind of overlooked, and you're in this major city, and they were sharing a stadium, or USF still is sharing a stadium with the Buccaneers until the stadium that they're currently building is finally done, which I think will be in 2027 or 2028. But yeah, I mean, they've been playing in Raymond James. They've had to, change the colors and the flags in there to be like, oh, it's USF, but like the third deck's always empty unless that one time they played Alabama a couple years ago. And, it was kind of like when Georgia State played in the Georgia Dome. It was like, all right, well, hopefully we can just fill up the first bowl and that's it, right? So, yeah, I mean, I looked at it as two athletic programs at these schools that aren't necessarily known for athletics, but USF athletics has taken this huge leap. And I think a big reason for it is because they changed their mindset of we need to have an athletic director. So their athletic director, Michael Kelly, left for Navy to sit in that same position. So instead of hiring a new athletic director, USF hired a CEO of athletics. In this new age of college athletics and NIL and everything else, like the way money is stewarded is so important. So they went and they got the president of the Tampa Bay Sports Commission to be the CEO of athletics, and that's his job. And he stewards money. Of course, he's part of hiring coaches and everything else. I mean, he's been doing that, and we've seen it work. Like Alex Golish was here, and he did a fantastic job getting Georgia State into the national conversation about making the playoffs. They didn't make it, but they were in the conversation. That ended up, getting him a job at Auburn. We saw Coach Amir Abdul-Rahim come here from Kennesaw State, and USF won the regular season American Conference title. Unfortunately, he passed away. Took them, about a year to get, back on their feet. They end up bringing Coach Hodson here. Hodson wins the American Championship, regular season and conference. They go to the NCAA tournament. He leaves for Providence, but okay, these teams are having success across the board. The women's lacrosse team, just won the American Conference regular season title. The softball team just won the American Conference regular season title. They have a chance to win the tournament this weekend. And I'm like, Georgia State could be doing this. Georgia State could be doing all of this. This is not that much different. Like, I know that USF has the privilege of having like a side of Tampa that they can actually have a campus. Like they have a campus. Like Georgia State has a campus, but it's more like I'm driving through downtown. It's like, oh, I'm driving by Georgia State. That's cool. The USF has like a side of town that's like, oh, this is theirs. So there is a difference there, but I think it's there for Georgia State. They just have to have the right person to steward it, and I just think right now they don't.
I think you voiced a lot of what people listening will agree. I know you're a wrestling guy. I kind of set you up there for a hometown pop where you can just say everything to make the crowd cheer at home. David, thank you for running through the Ted Hurst stuff. Thank you for talking through the Georgia State stuff, because obviously you still care and you've got ideas how to fix it, as I'm sure a lot of people do. And I think you're not off base there with a lot of ideas, and USF being someone to model, which again, kind of serendipitously perfect. USF in Tampa, where you are, kind of everything's lining up Georgia State as far as maybe the city to look to, whether you're watching your pro sports or college sports to model after. But David, thank you for coming back on the podcast. We appreciate your insights.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, man. It's a pleasure.
Our thanks again to David for taking a bit of time to speak with us. And now for the rest of this week's scheduled programming, hitting a lot of stuff across the sports, starting with basketball and coaching news and the assembly of John Cremins' new staff, his first staff in Atlanta. Starting to get more and more of a picture of what John Cremins' first year is going to look like, because we got the announcement of the new staff that he has put in place fully. There's been leaks here and there throughout the last couple of weeks as he has been on the job, but we got the official announcement from Georgia State Athletics of who is going to be on his inaugural staff in the 26-27 season. Corey Hendren being assistant coach. He was at Tallahassee State College as the head coach before this since 2023, so another JUCO connection there, and a sitting head coach joining. Vince Martin was previously out there as a name that was going to be joining the staff. He had been at Samford and Lipscomb before that under the same head coach, Lenny Acuff, so someone else who had been a high school head coach before in Florida at Bishop Snyder High School for 3 seasons, so similar vibe there. You're adding as well Denon Morrow, who had been the associate head coach at Jacksonville State and had worked his way up from the coordinator of basketball operations there in 2020 all the way up to being an assistant coach and then the associate. So someone who has worked at the mid-major level, worked his way up as staff, worked his way from being off the court to on the court, being able to coach the guys up. So more of the trend there is someone who we had talked about had been added to the staff, but it's official now. Matt Schultes, who was the director of basketball operations at James Madison and Vanderbilt along with Coach Cremins, but he spent the last 2 seasons as an assistant at Longwood. So some familiar connections there for John Cremins, officially named as an assistant coach on this staff. Adam Simmons added as an assistant. He had been the director of operations at Longwood along with Coach Schultes, so some familiarity there. He had been a GA at Vanderbilt working with Coach Cremins, so more of the same general vibe. Terriante Thomas is on the staff as an assistant coach. He had been at New Mexico State, the last 2 as an assistant coach under Jason Hooten, so he actually would have seen last year's team up close and personal because he was on the staff there in Las Cruces, a team that Georgia State played in their November MTE event, a game that New Mexico State won and Georgia State lost, kind of was a theme for the season. And then operations coordinator Michael Caswell, he had been at VMI and he had been an assistant coach in 2025-26 at VMI. He had been the head coach at Palm Beach Prep before then. Served in other various roles as an assistant, so another young guy, and that's really the theme across the whole staff, is there's really a young guy at every spot that's been hired. A lot of familiarity with Coach Cremins, and so those are the names of the all named as assistants, although I think a couple of those might be GAs, or it's interesting and kind of unusual that everyone bears the title of assistant coach and there's no associate that is named as yet, and maybe that'll come, and that was just the release that was put out as it was, and so we'll learn more about that moving forward. But we did get the names of all of the coaches that will be joining Coach Cremins right away, and so you're kind of copying sitting head coach. You're kind of copying a first-time D1 head coach like you were with Jonas Hayes, and there was a lot of young coaches alongside him, including his brother Jarvis on that staff, and obviously the last 4 years didn't go well, but I would just say it's only fair to Coach Cremins and his staff that they give time to prove that it's not just a repeat, that just because it is a very similar kind of way as the staff was assembled when Jonas was in charge doesn't mean you're going to have 4 years of the same results. And so with that, moving on to the roster side of things, there were a couple of additions to talk about since we have last recorded. Zion Wilburn comes over from Sanford. He will be coming to Georgia State via the portal. He is a small forward listed at 6'5", 190, 2025-26, 4.9 points a game, 2.1 rebounds a game in 16 games played. Kind of a sparing role there in Sanford, but some familiarity with Vince Martin, one of the assistants who was his coach there last season. So the first of those real, where DeJuan Odom came over with Jonas when he got the hire in year one in 2022-23. You've got an assistant coach bringing a player who had coached before, and so not an unusual thing with these coaching staffs where you'll bring in someone you were coaching at your previous spot. The first transfer addition to the front court, as he's listed as a small forward, and so I think a lot more to see as far as how the forwards and the centers are put together in that room, but a first inclination there, and so still waiting to really see the general idea of what that room is going to look like, those forwards are going to look like, but the first one there. And then another interesting one, Eric Parnell, who had been at FDU, Fairleigh Dickinson, who was the 16 who knocked off Purdue a few seasons back, if you can remember that. He was at Hofstra before. That's where he started his college career. He's originally from Melbourne, Florida, so coming slightly closer to home than New Jersey and New York as he was at before. But he shot 272 three-pointers this past season, and he only made 33% of them, but still averaged over 10 points a game, was a 80+% free throw percentage, so you like that, and you think that maybe is a trend towards the shooting percentage can get higher from three as well. And I would actually point to an example of a player who left Georgia State and improved to this kind of what maybe you're hoping for with Eric Parnell. With you had Jacob Meyer, you had David Thomas, you have Braylon Barnes already added that we've talked about in previous episodes, or the first additions to this roster for Coach Cremins. You're not having as many shots available for a guy like Parnell, who maybe he starts, but seems like he's maybe slightly lower in like the who gets the ball category of things. Tenari Lane left Georgia State. His numbers and his efficiency shot way up when he went to San Diego this past season. was north of 40% from three, having taken like 70 less of them than he did his last year at Georgia State. And so that feels like kind of the model you're looking for there, as far as maybe you're asking a guy who took 272 threes to take 170 or something in that ballpark and make more of them. And, something that John Cremens talked about at his opening press conference, or maybe it was in the interview with Dave Cohen, is talking about points per game being slightly overrated in evaluation and looking more at efficiency. And so it's a weird thing to say when I say that the actual numbers themselves were not that efficient in his last stuff, but I am wondering if they are trying to find guys that, you can kind of equate this to Zion Wilburn as well, of maybe their numbers weren't crazy efficient at their last spots, but in the role that they have in mind for them here, that those numbers would go up, and they like the shooting stroke, they like the rest of it. And so starting to really see the guard group come together, maybe one or two, maybe them both being freshmen, one or two freshmen getting added to the mix, just kind of add a little bit of youth to the guard rotation, get some development guys. Other than that, all the guys we've just talked about, feels like there's really not that many more minutes to go around. There's only one basketball and all the rest of the cliches. So feels like we're close to there being kind of no more guard additions made. And so that leaves basically the entire front court rotation still to come. And still, we're into May. Even though they got a bit of a late start, you are probably starting to want to see the roster get to completion soon, which I expect over the next couple of weeks. We'll have more to talk about on that front as Georgia State adds 2 transfers this week. And then kind of rounding out the basketball stuff, some transfers the other way, including a few to some familiar spots and some teams that Georgia State is going to see on the schedule, and so you're going to get some reunions going on. On the men's side, Anthony Eno, this was just put out today by Kennesaw State, that they've signed him. So guy who is kind of a undersized 5, undersized 4 at times, guy they brought up from D2 this past season. Really good energy guy, rebounding guy. So that'll be one to watch in terms of familiar face in the game that's been scheduled the last couple of years. I think we expect that series to just keep going on ad infinitum at this point. And another one formerly in the conference, about to be joining the new Pac-12, but a familiar school nonetheless. Crystal Henderson going to transfer to Texas State under their new head coach there as they transfer out of the Sun Belt themselves. So maybe not someone they're going to see on the schedule, but certainly a name that's familiar to Georgia State fans as the school that Crystal lands at. The writing was probably on the wall when Gene resigned, and there was a big connection there between the two of them. And I guess it hurts a little bit less given that Texas State isn't a conference peer anymore, but certainly a player that Marcelina Grayer would have liked to have heading into year one. A lot to like about what Crystal did in a Georgia State uniform. A couple more to run through real quick that we haven't gotten to on the pod yet that have kind of broken over the last little while. Mike Tucker going to Grand Canyon, so following the footsteps there of Colin Moore when he transferred to GCU and made the tournament a couple of times. So there's a pipeline growing there to who's established himself as one of the better mid-major programs right now going under Bryce Drew. Makes a lot of sense. And truthfully, whether it was here or whether it was somewhere else and now we know it's going to be Grand Canyon, expect Micah to blossom. There were certainly some traits and some trends that I really liked watching him as he grew as a freshman. And so I would expect that move to work for him. I think we might see a lot of Micah Tucker having success as he grows as a college basketball player. Malachi Brown goes to Western Carolina. That news also out today as I am recording this podcast. Trey Scott goes to the College of Charleston. So maybe a bit of a surprise given the numbers or lack thereof he put up as in his first season as a redshirt freshman. But a certainly one to watch as far as if a guy like that who wasn't maxing out as a player under Jonas Hayes goes to a place like Charleston that's been, frankly, a much better program than Georgia State has the last few years. Certainly another kind of knock on the Jonas Hayes record as far as guys that go somewhere else and play much better. Now, is that a little unfair because maybe he just gets better as a sophomore versus as a freshman because everyone gets better from year one to year two? Certainly, but we've seen that tale quite a few times to where I don't know what I was going to expect if Trey Scott was back, just because we didn't see all that much consistently. Obviously, he was dealing with some injuries there, but certainly another one to watch if you're trying to keep score of like how bad were the evals or how bad was the coaching that was going on as Jonas Hayes in 4 straight losing seasons here in Atlanta. Moving on to baseball, and not much good to report on that front as they lose all 3 games of the weekend to Louisiana. They lose in the midweek in 11 innings, 10-9 to in-state Kennesaw State. They are now 22-26 and 10-14 in Sunbelt play with 2 series left. If they want a winning record in Sunbelt games, they will have to win out the remainder of those games. They've got a series at Georgia Southern this weekend, and they'll finish out and close out the bus lot in style with a series to close out the year versus App State, who has ascended to 3rd in the league there, 28-18, 15-9 as we speak in Sunbelt play, in 3rd place in the belt. Ended up being a doubleheader down in Louisiana in Lafayette. The first 2 games, because the weather was bad all week. It canceled their first 2 their planned midweek games. They were going to take a little trip out to play along the way. They lose both of those games. They lose 14-1 in the opener. They lose 5-1 in game 2 on Saturday. They drop the series finale 4-3 on Sunday. And then kind of a crazy game, 26 combined hits between the teams in the Metro Atlanta battle, as it were. But Kennesaw pulls it out. State scores 2 in the top of the 11th, but they give up 3 in the bottom, get walked off in Kennesaw State's new stadium, Mickey Dunn Stadium. And now there's a lot riding on this series because there's still, right now, just based on how everything shakes out, Georgia State, I believe, is out of the Sun Belt tournament. They're in a 4-way tie right now at 10-14 in the league with Texas State, ULM, and James Madison. Georgia Southern all the way back at 6-18 and 14-35 overall. They have been a proud baseball program and certainly have had success over the years that Georgia State would look to have. They hosted a regional not that long ago, but this has not been their year, and all they can do is play spoiler. But if Georgia State can't go get a win, at least in 2 of the 3 this weekend, Georgia Southern could get the last laugh in the rivalry, which they've already gotten multiple times over the course of this year as it is, most notably on the football field. They might be able to sink Georgia State's chances heading into the final weekend before they even have a chance to play their final games against App State and take them out of contention for even making the Sun Belt Conference tournament. And so 2 of 3 here to start would get them a good ways on their way to, then you got to go probably still win the series against App State to feel good about your chances. And then, oh, by the way, at that point, you got to get ready for the Sun Belt Conference and some really heavy hitters at the top of the league. And so uphill battle, and this has been kind of the story with this baseball program. Like, it did not get as bad as maybe looked at times earlier in the year, but it is still kind of this hurdle of this Louisiana series on the road, which was going to be tough, is a series that they've lost and even been swept in quite a few times at pivotal spots on the schedule over the years, where they are still struggling to, in these final weeks of the season and in these big pivotal matchups where a lot rides on how the series goes, they're not able to get over the hump. They're not able to win those games and elevate themselves in that way. And, to that point, Louisiana wins all 3, moves all the way up to even 12-12 in the league, and they improved to 30-19 overall. They are all the way in solo 6th place. And so Georgia State wins 2 of those games. They're more in the mix of probably safe to make the tournament and maybe have a bit of upward mobility. It's not how the series played out, and it's kind of been that way as Georgia State. The resources in the stadium and being away from campus, being what it is, it has still been an issue where series like this have evaded them, and it is the case again. They've got 3 in Statesboro this weekend, and we'll see where everything sits when that series ends. We'll set kind of the permutations and, are they alive? What's the deal with their chances? What seed could they get to in the Sun Belt tournament on next week's episode? And the last thing to mention, a sad ending, but still a happy story in totality. Beach volleyball goes as the 15 seed to the NCAA tournament in Alabama. They lose in straight sets in their first game against the 2 seed Texas. And it is the end of this season. It happened kind of unceremoniously quickly if you're watching. Straight sets, beach volleyball match is... None of this in the grand scheme of things is a very long amount of time. Like a football game's not that much. But this was kind of a blink and you miss it, just the nature of the sport. And single elimination means that was it. They lose. Texas moves on. Still a good season for the Sandy Panthers as they win their 4th straight Sun Belt title and continue to really set the bar for success in this athletic department right now, even if getting over this final hurdle of you're going up against some really established programs with a lot more resources and money than you, like likes of Texas and places in California that, there are a lot more beaches around. Still getting over that final bit of difficulty, proving to be the last big thing for this program to clear, but a lot to like on that front as well, and a season they can be proud of. So one-man show, done and dusted, hit a lot of subjects there. Thank you for listening, and we will be back in full on the Thursday Night Podcast next time.